I'm Neil Harley and this is Cheswell Grange. We're a regenerative agriculture operation and we're supplying beef to the Ethical Butcher and the Wild Hare Group. So what we do in regenerative agriculture is really it's about returning to nature. So this farm was 100% arable only 5 years ago. It was cultivated and ploughed every year, which releases a lot of emissions into the atmosphere and obviously destroys the soil structure and the soil biology. What we're doing here is we're reverting to as little cultivation as possible and the reintroduction of native and diverse pastures to rebuild the soil structure, rebuild the microbiome of the soil and start, well, rebuilding nature from the ground up. The whole issue around cattle producing methane, well, yes, of course they do. I think the key to that is understanding that large areas of the planet have been natural grassland and that has evolved with large grazing animals. It's part of the management process. The problem with methane from cattle is when they're put more into a factory farming system, so you're increasing production over and above what the land would naturally do. Not only that, you're actually destroying the soil, releasing lots of carbon from the soil to grow crops that then go into the cattle that produce methane, whereas naturally the animals wouldn't be grazing on that. They would be grazing on pasture. So what we're trying to do with methane is not so much reduce the cow putting out methane, but allow the natural amount of methane that would be produced were it a natural environment with grazing animals on that pasture. I think absolutely every food brand should be using ethically sourced products. The definition of ethical is something we've got to be careful of, avoiding greenwash and saying it's sustainable while actually not changing the system of how we produce. That's going to be a real problem and something we have to watch out for in what we're doing. You actually do need to make that change to make it ethical, not just change how you look at it and say it is ethical and sustainable. And the truth is we need to be beyond sustainable at this point. We need to be regenerative. We need to be reintroducing biodiversity. We need to be reintroducing old systems which worked with nature rather than against it. That's the only way that we're actually going to save the planet we're on in the long term. And if we don't do that, well, you know, there is no planet B, as they say. What the Wild Hare Group are doing with actually bringing ethical food production systems into a supply chain is really key for the future. Right now it's very difficult to extract yourself from the conventional supply chains and to say what we're doing is different and why. So to have a brand like the Wild Hare that is actually using that solely and building that supply chain is going to be so key for all of us in the future, and I really hope that more companies follow their lead.